Welcome to the Parenting with Confidence podcast. I am your host, Teresa Alexander Inman, board certified behavior analyst and infant toddler developmental specialist. Now, today I am so thrilled to introduce to you Miss Phenomenal Everywhere herself. Lacey C. Clark. She is a multifaceted personification of expressive art, rich culture, soulful global travel, fierce femininity, who inspires the masses with the wisdom of Iyanla Vanzant and the artistic grace of Maya Angelou, and as much passion for traditional cuisine culture and the human condition as Anthony Bourdain. Lacey excites and educates with tales of her stereotype transcending. I love that. Stereotype transcending travels. Love it. She inspires women of all backgrounds to stay true to self. Her beliefs in self-love and empowerment are reflected in her thriving brands, Phenomenally You.
Yeah.
Welcome, Lacey.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, thank you for being here. When you said yes, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I was happy to be here to be able to offer some great value, hopefully, to your audience. So yeah, thank you
Oh,
for having me.
girl, it's not hopefully, it's you are going to offer great value. I know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm truly excited. So let's jump right in. And Lacey, I want to ask you because you've created this brand, Phenomenally You. And I want to start with, your story. Help us with a little bit of your journey. How did you get here?
Yeah, good question. So way back in the day, I know when I grew up, I had the good news. I had some cultural edification. So like I went to Freedom Theater, which is a performing arts school for Black performing artists in Philadelphia, and I learned about confidence there. However, what I didn't understand is how to feel beautiful and valuable as a young Black woman growing up in society or growing up in America. My mother was a beautiful example for me. However, she wasn't a peer, right? So she was someone that I loved and love, but still, but loved back in the day. But she was, corny. She's my mom, you know what I mean? She wasn't like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I want to be like my peers, the cool peers, the people I see on TV, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so I felt inferior in a lot of ways because I felt like I wasn't looking like the girls on the movie on the TV screen. I wasn't like the dance like the girls in the video. I wasn't really trying to do the sexy thing. That wasn't my, my, I tried to do the sexy thing, as a young woman growing up, but then it was like for attention. It wasn't really me. It was like, okay, if I wear a tighter skirt, or if I make sure my skirt is a little right, you know what I mean? If my skirt is a little shorter, that they would look at me, or they would, I would feel like valuable. You know what I'm saying? And so, that was a constant struggle, specifically because I was a dark-skinned young woman in a culture that said light skin is beautiful. And so a lot of times a lot of times I struggled with, you know, where I find value and beauty if everyone else is saying it looks like this, right? And I didn't look like that. So over time, obviously that affected my self-esteem and my self-worth. And so I would act out and get the wrong kind of attention. Want the wrong kind of attention because it made me feel like I was worth something, or I was valuable, even though society says I wasn't on so many fronts. You know what I mean? So in that journey, I recognize how media was huge. You know what I mean? Huge in that reality.
Yeah.
All the messages we got specifically back then. I mean, media is way more pervasive and like so many more tentacles now. But back when I was young, it was really what they gave you. It was like the R&B radio stations, the hip hop radio stations, the MTVs, the rap, MTV raps, all that. Like all of that was like what they gave you. You know what I mean? And that was like the trendsetters and the thing that we were supposed to aspire to as urban youth. And so that whole journey for me was a struggle, until I got to a point where I started to understanding the value I had beyond what they told me. And then what I realized what they told me when I started to read and learn about my history, my culture, my power, started to develop my voice, started to develop my strengths and my gifts, then I began to understand that what they were telling me was a lie. It wasn't the truth. And all
Mm.
this time, I believed it. All this time, it was like, this is what I want to, I want to define myself like they told me, to define myself or how I should define myself. So, in short, the bottom line is that I had that struggle. I started to research and learn more about my history, my culture, the value that I had within my strengths, my talents, my gifts. And in that journey, I began to value, love, honor myself. And in that journey, I then began to change my behavior. And so I didn't reach out for validation as much as I did when I didn't care about um, my self worth at the time, or my self value at the time. Um, so that's kind of the short version. And then when I got that, when I got all of those things for myself over a course of time, then I began to see that I was a really powerful, amazing being that had so much to offer and so much to give, and that I could actually give back to young women who had the same struggles that I have had, and help them see the light because I didn't see the light. Yeah. So yeah, that's a short version.
Yeah. Amazing story. And thank you for sharing that. And people are probably wondering, why are we talking about this on a parenting show? And I'm just going to give a little background. Now, teenagers that we're talking to and the parents of teenagers that we're talking to, we are looking to cultivate and develop, their chances are they'll become parents one day. And it has to start before they become parents, because my journey didn't start like all of that what you're talking about with the tight skirts and this and all of that. I went into that phase, where my self-esteem was low and I devalued myself.
Yes.
I was a young mother already at that time.
Mm.
And I realized, had I had like the information that you're giving right now, that probably would have saved me a whole lot. Because I remember one day I was doing laundry and there was one of my skirts in the laundry, and my 3-year-old, I think Dre was, yeah, he was 3 at the time. And he's like, Mommy, whose skirt is that? And I said, Mine. And he said, Well, it looks like a skirt for little girls.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And I was like, girl, what are no, honestly, and that woke me up. I was like, what are you doing? And it was
Mhm.
exactly that though, looking for that attention that I didn't get earlier on, and that validation and that value, by wearing that. And that I would have started off with a better foundation had I gone through that phase early in life, or not even had to go through that phase, had I been, had I had that foundation of self-love and self-esteem.
Mhm.
So that is why, parents, that we're doing this right now, because we're raising adults right now. We're raising, what is it, men and women in training. So
Mhm.
if we put all the values into them and teach them all the skills that we're talking about right now, then the next generation of parents will not have the same struggles that my generation did.
Agreed. Agreed.
um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is so rich and powerful. I mean, in terms of like, yeah, I mean, just better preparation. Like a lot of, like you said, a lot of, and even today, a lot of parents, uh, our culture and our society is really like built up on a survival based kind of experience. Like, just do the things you need to do to get to the next stage. Some parents and some people do, have a forecast and vision for their child and how their child is going to move and all the above. There are parents who definitely have that. But I think the total preparation, specifically about their wellness and their happiness and their self-esteem and stuff, or the intangible things that I think we miss, specifically in American culture, because it's all about success and the dollar, and the success meaning the dollar, success meaning how hard you work, not about the fullness of your experience. So you find older women who end up being, and when I mean older, I mean adult women as opposed to a teenage, women, as opposed to teenage girls, burnt out so quickly because it was all about what they told you success was about. Success are these tangible markers that usually have to relate to a dollar amount and awards and all this. But what about peace of mind? What about, you know what I'm saying? Like self-care. What about self-love? What about boundaries? What about, knowing what's healthy and in balance for your life? Knowing about what's, you know, authentic for you, because everything that they say is, you know, something that we should attain may not be for you. So that starts back with knowing thyself. That starts back with what is being authentically you. What is being loving? What is loving you, me? What does that mean? So everything you're saying is just rich. And again, there's so many gaps in that, I think, department when it comes to parenting, but I also think there's so many gaps in that department when it comes to us as human beings, in American culture, you know what I mean? That just say it's all about this tangible thing. That's what marks success. This car, this house, you know what I mean? This new TV, like what you know what I mean? These clothes, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
this is successful, but how do you feel? Are you enjoying? So yeah.
So true. And I actually interviewed somebody recently who talked about that. It's like, so many people, they have the things, but they're not happy.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who don't have the things, those markers that you talked about, and they are happy. So which
Right.
one is more successful?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think it boils down again to the values.
Mhm.
The values that we're taught, again, culturally, but then I think that parents have a huge job in allowing young people, young women specifically, other like to explore other realities other than what they say is success. Do you want a family? Do you not want a family? Do you want to be married? Do you not want it? Like thinking about this, you know what I mean? You know, are you aware of what a healthy partner is? If there wasn't, a two-parent household, or if there was it a healthy experience? Do you understand how to attract healthy people in your life, including friends? Like all of this stuff is part of that journey of learning thyself, knowing thyself, and understanding how to create healthier overall experiences overall, not just with um, the individual, but how it reflects on the outside as well.
Absolutely. And what I want parents to understand as well is you are the model that your children look to. Before they even step outside of the world, they look to who you are and they want to be who you are. So be who you want your children to become.
Right.
Provide them with the foundations that they need, all the elements that they need to make them a whole being
Right.
so that
Right.
they can thrive.
And that starts with the healing of the parent too.
Yes, yes,
That's
it
why it's so
does.
important that when I so my company is Sister Sanctuary, and so I offered, when I first started doing the work that I did. So I started doing like empowerment circles, I call them inner beauty parties. I was doing speaking engagements and workshops and seminars around empowerment for young women. But I did intergenerational work as well, because
Mhm.
my thing was, okay, so you have these young women who are like, okay, I'm thriving, or I'm shining, or I know, whatever, and they go back home to their aunties and their aunt and their mothers, and the moms don't have a sense of this kind of conversation. They don't understand what it's like to take care of themselves. So it's okay. You got to bring the generations. You got to bring the generations together. You got to get grandmom in there. You got to get auntie. You got to get mom. Get everybody involved, because if without that, it becomes again next generation. But and again, there isn't reinforcement of the community modeling, healthy womanhood. So yeah, I mean my journey with this work and empowering young women had to include, all the different aspects that were part of her world, because she would lose it if not.
Absolutely. And that's why, family is so important. That village is very
Village.
important. We need the village, people. And we've come out of that, because
Yes,
people,
thank
I
you.
don't want you in my business. I don't this, I don't
Right.
that. But if I'm in your business, then I know if your child is out there and your child is not safe, I can step in and help your child. But if you don't want me in your business and want me away from your child, then what am I going to do? I
Right.
still feel compelled to do something, but then you may be offended by it, or I
Right.
don't feel comfortable bringing it to you. And that valuable time is wasted where,
Right.
when your child's safety is at stake.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that what you're saying is really rich too. It's like, it's, I think, first of all, that was a cultural concept, a
Mhm.
village to raise a child. And
Yes.
we've gotten away from so much of our culture that we really don't even know what's up anymore. It's kind of like, and what's disturbing to me is like the cultures that I'm seeing that is basically about, I'm minding my business. This is my child. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's strongly away from that cultural aspect of village. Um, I mean, some people, have had negative experience with the village, but then my thing is, it part of the self-care, again back to the parent, the self-care is being able to have those support channels in place where it's not all on you, because all on you, even as two parents, can get exhausting and can get broken down, where you're not able to get to be as healthy as possible for the child. And not only that, I was going to say that oftentimes people you trust, the village, provides other aspects
Mhm.
of what the child needs that you may not be thinking about. So that's what it's like, the fullness of the developmental experience. You know what I mean? Of having other voices of women saying, "This is what I went through. This is what I," you know what I mean? So there's a lot of wisdom in the village.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Honestly, I have goosebumps right now, Lacey.
Thank you.
Because it's so important. Because if we're just working off of one viewpoint,
Right.
that does not make for a rich experience.
It
But if
doesn't.
all these different people come and share and lend, and you borrow from them, and it makes it so, empowering, because now you have all this information that you
Right.
can actually pull from
Right.
and use to create whatever you want to create within yourself. You
Right.
can pick and choose, but if you only have one coming at you, then it's like, oh.
It's deep because I remember, I was raised, I mean, my father was around sometimes, but primarily my mother raised me. Like, my father was around, he was on drugs. And so he would, be in and out of sobriety, but we're good now today. We're good. But he's healthy now. So I'm grateful for that. But my life was, my mom and then my aunties. And I remember, some of the stories my aunties told me, or some of the models that they created. And I look back on them today, being grateful for the things they modeled to me. But then the things they didn't tell me, like, I remember one of my aunts was sharing with me that she had dealt with sexual assault before. And it was shocking to me because I'm like, well, you never really even talked to me about that. You never even talked to me about being my mom. She was always like really conscious about who was around me, even as a young child. You know what I mean? And just being able to communicate clearly. Like, people who are predators don't like communicators because they talk a lot. You know what I'm saying? But my point is, my auntie didn't really tell me about the culture, you know what I mean, of sexual assault and things that were happening. And I didn't realize that she was sexually assaulted until like way, way later in our relationship. And this is the type of stuff I think that, sometimes the parent may not have the language to talk about, or maybe feeling some kind of way about, but someone else in their lives can talk real and candid about some of the real experiences that are happening to women and things of that sort, and glean strength and power, and avoid chaos and challenges by hearing the stories of other women. So I think that specifically the women village, that's part of what when I was doing the Sister Sanctuary Tea Party was about, was the village. Like, let's get the women in here talking real. You know what I'm saying? Let's get them talking
Yes.
about these realities of, relationships and heartbreak and, parenting and, all the things, self-esteem, and, all the things that over the course of a lifetime we experience. Like, get the wisdom out on the table. And what's frustrating to me about now is that I feel like with obviously the advent of social media, that you have a generation of people speaking amongst themselves, and there's not a lot of wisdom coming in the circle. It's
Right.
like it's just like you creating your own thing, not trying to be chaotic like the last generation that got you. Makes sense.
Right.
But now, you're creating your own thing, your own concept, and it's not really a lot of wisdom, because even
Mhm.
though people have made mistakes, there's still wisdom to glean from their mistakes. So
Absolutely.
I think I'm a little concerned about that. I'm concerned that social media makes a generation talk amongst themselves and edify their own individual, like, um, I would say premature thoughts, maybe premature
Mhm.
thoughts, or unlived experience. You didn't live it.
Yes.
You got commentary, but you're not living it. You know what I'm saying? So
Right. Yeah, living vicariously through other people and not having and, just talk, well, he said, she said, and there's not a lot of
exactly.
authenticity in it.
Yes.
And it just makes for it doesn't make for, like you alluded to before, the rich experience that, that foundation where we can actually pull from and use to lift ourselves up.
Yeah.
A friend of mine would always say, because when people share on social media, how authentic is it? Yeah, they share like the gleamy, wonderful, beautiful parts. Like a friend of mine always says, it's like, it looks like grass, but it's actually astroturf, because
Mm.
it's so
Oh my God, I love that. It looks like
yeah,
grass, but it's actually.
yeah, it's just artificial. And
Mhm.
that's really
Mhm.
sad. So I love that you're creating that platform and that, working to empower children and teens to cultivate self-love. And I know we're going to talk about cultivating self-love, and we've just gone everywhere, but we can always come back and chat again, right, girl? Because I know you've got things to do, but yeah, but this has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. And if there's one thing you want parents to come away from or the audience to come away from, what would that be? Come away with?
Again, my focus is primarily young women and teen girls and really supporting them and being healthier women, right? And so I would definitely say parents of young women need to invest in young women's wellness
Mhm.
and teen girls' wellness and their journey to being well beings, their journey to being whole beings, and their confidence and self esteem. Because the truth about that is, confidence and self esteem can waver through the course of life, right?
Mhm.
And so I would just say the one thing that I would leave people with is that, it's not all about the tangible markers that say that she's successful, but more so how she's taking care of herself, how she's valuing herself, the choices that she makes, the decisions that she has. All of that kind of stuff is really the intangible aspects of a young woman's journey, a teen girl's journey to young women to woman, that we want to make sure is safe and that she's successful and smart about in every aspect of it. And so, part of what Phenomenal You does is support them in that journey. So I would say cultivate that early as possible, because that's really what is going to determine who they are as women in the world.
Absolutely, yes, and I like that you emphasize as early as possible because, we want to wait until they're older, but you can start from the day a child is born and start pouring into them so that they can develop, with self-love and self-esteem and, put that it has to start at the beginning,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. And then also as they mature, there's more to learn. I mean, my mother's approach with me was, if they're old enough to ask, they're old enough to get the answer.
There you
So
go.
depending on how mature they are and how developed they are in their understanding, then at the end of the day, the conversation becomes more and more rich about, how to see themselves in all of the aspects of their development.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's fluid, it's forever changing. And
Yes,
we have to learn to roll with it and go
yes,
with it.
yes,
Otherwise, we're we'll be doing our children a disservice.
yes. And to be honest about, our own journeys. I know sometimes we try to shield our children or
Mhm.
shield children from the reality, but if you feel like it's not something that you can in part, this is again bringing back that village. Finding someone you feel is capable and trustworthy enough to be able to communicate, um, and provide tools that can help with those places that may be unclear for that young woman developing in her life.
Yes, absolutely. But Lacey, it's been a pleasure, and I hope we're gonna do this again. Say yes. Okay.
You could do it again.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Because there's so much more we can talk about. And like I said, we had a whole plan, and
Yeah.
then we just kind of went off the rails. But it was
I think,
fun.
yeah, I think what we said was valuable, and I think that, like I said, this imparting the self-esteem and self-love and the self-worth piece is just so important, and it
Yeah.
just informs so much. It informs relationships, it informs decision making, it informs finances, it informs school. I mean, everything. Self-love. There's nothing in my opinion, and what I teach is that there's nothing that no part of life is untouched by your love of self, meaning that if you don't love yourself, you'll find yourself attracting and gaining attention from people who are toxic for you, and it will affirm how you feel about yourself.
Absolutely.
And then when you start to value more of yourself, you'll start to attract people who will affirm how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
So it's just to me inescapable. You gotta like go down that journey, or young people have to go down that journey to be healthier and not get caught up in all the chaos and confusion they can get caught up in on the journey called life.
Yes, yes. So next time we'll come back and talk about how to cultivate that self-love and self-esteem, like go deeper into it. Because I know we kind of just skirted around it a little bit, but if we can go deep into it, that would be lovely.
Yes. Well, I'm
Okay.
glad they got something tonight. Hopefully they got something today.
Oh gosh, no, this has been awesome.
So I'm glad
I've
they got.
learned, and I was able to connect some things, like in my own life that I honestly hadn't really looked deeper into. So for me, this has been very rich.
Excellent. Well, I'm
All
happy.
right. Thank you so much, ma'am. And we'll
Welcome.
see you again soon.
Say it again.
I said we'll see you again soon, right?
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right.
I was gonna say they definitely can check out phenomenally-u.com. Again, that's phenomenally-u, PHENOMNELLY-u.com.
All right, go there because, and I just want to, it's an empowerment system to socially and emotionally prepare young women for college and life.
Yes.
That you can't pay for that.
Right.
There is no price that you can put to that because you're preparing for life. And that will make such a difference in, our future because we're creating our future with young people. And if we prepare them and we empower them, then hey, we don't have a whole lot to worry about.
Yeah, and there's so I talk about this in this so on the website there's um 7 biggest mistakes that parents make in preparing their daughters for college,
Mhm.
and why your daughter's at risk in college and what you can do about it. And the 7 mistakes that I talk about are some of the things that we just talked about today, which is basically some of the tools they would need to navigate those vulnerable places in life.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, how do you navigate the vulnerability? You know what I mean? When you don't feel so confident, when you don't feel beautiful, when you don't feel, you're not gonna always feel that way. Even with self love, reality, you don't always feel great. You don't always feel like you're successful. But I
Mhm.
think the 7 tools that we talk about and they can get the free copy of the report, is really about having reinforcements. There we go. Reinforcements and
Yeah.
tools that help them move forward when they feel vulnerable, specifically that transition from high school to college. So yeah,
Yeah. So parents, get over there, pick it up from
and it's free.
phenomenally-u.com. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you. Thank
Lacey.
you so much, Teresa. I'm so happy that I was here to share with you.
Oh gosh, yes, it was an absolute honor. Yeah.